Everyone wants success. Everyone says they want to win, to rise, to lead. But most people are chasing it backwards. They run after results. They obsess over tactics. They copy what others are doing, hoping something clicks. But success, real success, doesn't work like that. It's not something you chase. It's something you attract, not by doing more, but by becoming more. The world doesn't reward desperation. It rewards alignment. It rewards energy. It rewards presence. And you've seen this. The ones who seem to magnetize opportunities, the ones who walk into a room and people notice, the ones who don't have to beg for a 10 because their aura already commands it, that's not luck. That's identity. That's the result of a person who has become the kind of person success wants to follow. The person who moves with intention, who works without showing off, who grows in silence and lets results speak. This isn't about pretending to be someone else. It's about becoming who you were meant to be before the world made you doubt it. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how. How to build that mindset. How to shape that energy. How to stop chasing and start attracting. Because the truth is, success isn't running from you. It's waiting for you to catch up to yourself. And once you do, once you step into that identity, everything changes. People treat you differently. Challenges shrink in front of you. The path clears. Not because life got easier, but because you got aligned. So if you're tired of forcing things, if you're done begging for doors to open, if you know there's something more inside of you, something greater, this is your moment. You don't need to hustle harder. You need to align deeper. And that begins by becoming the kind of person who no longer has to convince the world of anything, because the world can already feel what you carry. This is not motivation. This is transformation. This is about becoming magnetic, becoming intentional, becoming the one they watch when the room gets quiet. Because when you become that person, success has no choice but to follow. Success isn't a finish line. It's not a number in your bank account or a title on your desk. It's a reflection, a mirror. It reflects who you are internally. It responds not to effort alone, but to identity. You've been taught to chase it, to grind, to hustle, to wear yourself thin, proving your worth. But the truth is, the people who attract success aren't chasing anything. They are simply aligned with it. They move like success is already part of who they are, not something they need to earn, but something they naturally magnetize. That's the shift. That's the key. It's not about trying harder. It's about becoming clearer. Clear on who you are. Clear on your values. Clear on your energy. When you're scattered, insecure, and desperate, success feels distant. But when you're calm, centered, and certain, success feels inevitable. That's what it means to attract. Not to wait passively, but to prepare actively. To build yourself into someone so aligned with the outcomes you want that they begin to show up without force. Imagine walking through life not begging for attention, but commanding respect. Not needing permission, but moving with authority. Not explaining yourself constantly, but being so grounded that your silence says more than other speeches. That's not ego. That's energy. That's what successful people carry. Not just knowledge, not just discipline, but presence. When they enter a room, the atmosphere shifts, not because they're loud, but because they're aligned. And you can build that, you can train for that, but it starts with letting go of the old model, the model that says you have to grind endlessly, impress constantly, and exhaust yourself just to be seen. That model breaks people. It burns them out. It leaves them empty even when they win. But when you choose to attract instead of chase, you reclaim your power. You stop running toward things that don't align. You stop lowering your standards to fit into places you've outgrown. You stop trying to force what's not meant for you. And instead, you start rising quietly, consistently, powerfully. You start building a life that fits you, not one you have to squeeze into. and the world begins to respond. The right people, the right opportunities, the right energy. All of it starts finding its way to you not because you forced it, but because you became a match for it. This is the mindset shift. This is the foundation. Stop asking, what do I need to do to succeed? Start asking, who do I need to become to attract it naturally? Because when you get that answer right, the rest follows effortlessly. There is a kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from work, it comes from chasing, from constantly feeling like you're behind, like you're not enough yet, like something is always missing. No matter how hard you try, you wake up already anxious. You move through the day trying to prove something, to get attention, to get approval, to get ahead. And maybe you do succeed for a moment. Maybe you get the sale, the praise, the win, but it doesn't last, because deep down you know you didn't attract it, you forced it. And what is forced must always be maintained by force. That's the prison. That's the trap. You become addicted to effort, to pushing, to proving, to grinding yourself into the ground, hoping that one day all the effort will be worth it. But what if you're running in the wrong direction? What if success was never something to chase, but something to align with? Most people never stop to ask. They just keep running. They confuse motion with progress. They confuse effort with identity. And they pay for it with their peace, their self-respect, their energy. You've seen it. The person who works harder than anyone but always seems stressed, anxious, insecure. The one who's always performing, always posting, always trying to show they're winning. But you can feel the desperation. You can feel the disconnect, because they're chasing something they don't yet believe they deserve, something they haven't become a match for internally. That's why it slips through their fingers. That's why they keep burning out, because they're trying to earn something that was never meant to be earned, it was meant to be embodied. If you don't believe you're worthy, success will feel temporary. If you don't respect yourself, success will feel like an accident. If you don't align your identity with what you want, you'll sabotage it the moment it arrives. That's the hidden pain no one talks about. Not just failing to reach success, but reaching it and still feeling empty, still feeling like a fraud, still feeling like you're not enough, because deep down you never became the person who could hold it. You just became good at chasing it. That's not sustainable. That's not freedom. And if you've felt that before, if you've lived in that cycle, you know how heavy it gets, how tiring it is to always feel like you're almost there, but never quite. Like success is something you're chasing with outstretched arms while it runs just ahead of you, always out of reach. But it doesn't have to be like that. You can stop running. You can stop forcing. You can stop trying to become what you already have the potential to be, and start becoming someone who no longer needs to chase because they've aligned, because they've prepared, because they've grown into the version of themselves that success naturally flows toward. That's the shift. And it begins when you finally decide, I'm done begging for what I was born to attract. There is a kind of strength that doesn't make noise, it doesn't post, it doesn't seek applause. It simply enters the room and shifts the atmosphere. You've seen it, you've felt it. That person who doesn't try to impress yet everyone, listens when they speak. That presence, that gravity, that calm that says, I know who I am. That's the force of someone who has become the person success wants to follow. It's not just confidence, it's congruence. When your words match your energy, when your posture reflects your values, when your silence holds more weight than someone else's performance, that's what real alignment looks like. And people feel it. They might not know why. They might not be able to explain it, but they're drawn to it because it's rare, because it's honest, because it's magnetic. The truth is, when you stop chasing, you stop broadcasting neediness. You stop broadcasting doubt. You stop sending the signal that you're not enough. And in that space, you begin to emit something different. A calm certainty, a quiet power, a presence that says, I don't need anything from you. I bring something to the table. And that flips everything. You stop trying to get in the room, and the room starts noticing you. You stop trying to convince people, and they start seeking your approval. You stop trying to compete, and people start wondering how you do it. But it's not a tactic, it's not a trick. It's the result of deep internal work, of becoming whole, of removing the noise, the insecurity, the desperation, and choosing instead to become a source of clarity, of stability, of value. And that's what people respond to. Not your pitch, not your hustle, but your essence, your alignment, your groundedness. Because in a world full of noise, calm is power. In a world full of ego, presence is rare. In a world full of chasing, stillness stands out. This doesn't mean you stop working. It means your work stops coming from lack. It starts coming from overflow, from discipline, not desperation, from vision, not validation. And that shift is everything. When you move like you already are who you're becoming, success catches up to you. It's no longer something you wait for, it's something you carry with you, in your words, in your walk, in your decisions. And people feel that. They remember it, because presence is unforgettable. You don't have to announce it, you don't have to prove it, you just have to be it. And when you are, you become the one they watch, the one they ask about, the one they can't quite explain but can't look away from. That's the force you're building. Quiet, focused, unshakable. Look through history, not just the surface, not just the outcomes, but the essence of those who left a mark. The ones who didn't just win, they lasted. They didn't scream for recognition, but the world still remembers their names. Why? Because they didn't chase success, they became it. Think of Martin Luther King Jr. He didn't storm into rooms demanding respect. He walked in with so much alignment, so much conviction, so much clarity that the room shifted before he even spoke. His power wasn't just in his words, it was in his presence. Or look at Steve Jobs. He wasn't the loudest in the room. He didn't need to explain himself constantly. He knew what he stood for. His vision was precise. His standards were non-negotiable, and because of that, people followed. Not because he begged, but because his energy created gravity. It pulled people in. And then there's someone like Mother Teresa. No flash, no spotlight, no platform built on performance. Just presence, just unwavering purpose. Just the discipline of becoming someone whose alignment with service was so deep, the world had no choice but to take notice. What do they all have in common? They became, they trained, they sacrificed the noise to build substance. And they never had to ask to be seen because they were already felt. That's the level of transformation you're being called to. Not to mimic them, not to become a copy of greatness, but to discover what happens when you stop trying to get attention and start building something worth paying attention to. That's what they did. They weren't obsessed with algorithms, trends, or temporary validation. They were obsessed with alignment, with mastery, with the invisible work, the kind no one sees but everyone feels. That's what made them magnetic. That's what gave them a presence that outlived their breath, and it's the same formula available to you. You don't need more hype. You need more alignment. You don't need to chase applause. You need to develop character. You don't need to build an image. You need to build identity. That's what leaders do. They become so deeply themselves that no one can ignore them. And the irony? Once you become that version of you, you stop caring whether they notice or not. Because your fulfillment comes from who you are not, from who sees you. That's freedom, that's power, and that's legacy. When you study the greats, don't just look at what they did. Look at who they became to do it. And ask yourself, what version of me is required for the life I want? That's the version you build. That's the path you walk. That's the identity success is already looking for. Becoming the kind of person who attracts success isn't about one moment of motivation. It's about 1,000 silent choices. It's not about hype, it's about habits. It's not about shouting your goals, it's about living in alignment with them when no one's watching. You don't wake up magnetic, you build it. And the building begins with awareness. The first step is radical responsibility. You stop blaming, you stop outsourcing, you stop waiting for someone else to give you permission to be great. You take ownership of your thoughts, your actions, your energy. You stop saying, when I get there, I'll become, and you start saying, let me become now so I can draw there to me. You shift from chasing outcomes to crafting identity. And from there, the process becomes simple but never easy. Every morning you ask, who do I need to be today to attract what I want? And then you live it. Not perfectly, but consistently. You act like someone who already has the mindset, the presence, the self-respect that success responds to. That means discipline and not motivation. Discipline in how you show up, how you speak to yourself, how you respond when things don't go your way. Success doesn't come to those who are always inspired. It comes to those who are always becoming. That means practicing silence over reaction, practicing stillness over chaos, practicing consistency over performance. You train this the same way you'd train a muscle with reps. Every time you choose a response aligned with the version of you you're becoming, you build strength. You wire your brain to respond differently. You reprogram the way you carry yourself. And over time, that becomes natural. You walk differently, you speak differently, people treat you differently because you're not coming from lack anymore. You're coming from clarity. You're not looking for something to complete you, you're living from a place of overflow. And that takes practice. You journal, you reflect, you visualize, you remove the noise people, habits, inputs that don't align with where you're going. You become selective with your time, your thoughts, your environment, not out of arrogance, but out of awareness. Because you've realized every minute you spend unaligned is a minute you delay what's already meant for you. So you sharpen your routine. You build anchors morning habits, mental resets, quiet space to think. You move from reacting to life to responding with intention. You no longer act based on emotion. You act based on identity. And that changes everything. Because the person who trains like this, the person who becomes this, doesn't need to ask for attention, doesn't need to chase opportunities. They are the opportunity. They are the example. They are the one success finds, because success is not a reward, it's a response. And when you become the version of you that aligns with its success, can't help but arrive. Close your eyes not to escape, but to see. See the version of you who no longer doubts, no longer chases, no longer waits for something or someone to hand over a life of significance. Picture it. You wake up with clarity. You move with certainty. There's no noise in your head, just direction. You walk into a room and you don't shrink. You don't overthink. You simply are, fully, calmly, unshakably. You don't chase people. You don't need applause. You become your own standard. You know what you carry. You know who you are. This is the version of you that attracts success. Not by chance, but by frequency. Not by performance, but by presence. It's not about being better than anyone else. It's about being fully aligned with yourself. And when you are, you become a magnet for the things that are meant for you. You stop being pulled in every direction by fear, by comparison, by insecurity. You stand firm, grounded. Not just in what you do, but in who you are. You start living like someone who's already arrived, not because you're done growing, but because you finally stopped waiting to feel worthy. And from that energy, everything changes. You speak with more confidence. You say no without guilt. You say yes with power. You look at your goals, not with anxiety, but with precision. You stop asking, can I do this? And start affirming, this is already mine. Because the real shift doesn't happen when something external changes. It happens when you finally align your inner identity with the life you were always meant to live. And that identity is built day by day. You visualize it, you feel it, you speak from it. You walk from it until it no longer feels like a vision, it feels like reality. Because it is. You are not becoming something foreign. You're returning to your original design. The version of you before the world taught you to doubt, before fear crept in, before failure made you small, that version is still there, still breathing, still waiting for you to claim it. So visualize it, not just once, every day, until the lines between imagination and embodiment blur, until your posture changes, until your voice deepens, until your choices reflect someone who no longer negotiates their standards, until people start saying things like, "You've changed," and you smile because you know you didn't change. You just stopped pretending. You started showing up as the person success was always looking for. So ask yourself daily, what does that version of me look like? What does that version of me believe? How does that version of me walk, talk, decide, lead? And then act accordingly until it's no longer an exercise but your natural way of being. That's when success starts arriving without force. That's when the world starts adjusting to your frequency, because you've become the one they watch. Picture this. You walk into a meeting, everyone's talking fast, the energy is rushed, nervous. People are trying to prove they're value-cutting each other off, throwing ideas, searching for validation. But you sit calm. You don't rush your words. You don't compete for attention. You wait. You speak when it matters. And suddenly everyone listens because your energy feels different. Or imagine this. You're offered an opportunity. It looks good on the outside, money, attention, a fast win. But something in your gut says it's not aligned. The old version of you would have jumped at it, out of fear, out of scarcity. But not now. Now you pause. Now you ask, does this align with who I'm becoming? And when the answer is no, you walk away. Not out of arrogance, but out of awareness. Because you're not chasing anymore. You're attracting. Or maybe it's more personal. A relationship. Someone returns from your past, pulling on your emotions, saying all the right things. But you've changed. You don't beg to be chosen anymore. You don't perform to be loved. You've raised your standards and you stick to them. Not because you're cold, but because you've learned that alignment matters more than attachment. And so you release. Gracefully, quietly, powerfully. These are the moments that define who you are becoming. Not the big events, not the dramatic wins, but the small, silent decisions made in ordinary situations. The way you carry yourself at the grocery store. The way you respond when someone disrespects you. The way you handle failure, not with collapse, but with composure. That's where alignment shows. That's where identity is tested. That's where magnetism is built, because people feel your energy. They feel whether you're chasing something or whether you've already become it. And energy doesn't lie. You can't fake peace. You can't fake presence. You either are or you're not. And the good news, you can practice it everywhere. In the way you breathe, in the way you sit, in the way you pause before reacting, in the way you say no without explanation, in the way you ask for nothing but receive everything, because you carry yourself like someone who already deserves it. Imagine walking into your day with that kind of frequency. Every interaction becomes a stagionaut to perform, but to align. Every task becomes a reflection not of effort alone, but of excellence. You become the kind of person who doesn't need to sell themselves because they are the product, the presence, the proof. And as you keep living this way, calm, clear, intentional, the world starts treating you differently. Not because it changed, but because you did. And now it's simply catching up to your frequency. There are two ways to move through the world. One is driven by validation, the other by alignment. And the difference is everything. When you live for validation, every action is a performance. You're not building, you're pleasing, you're not focused, you're reacting, you're constantly checking the room, the likes, the views, the opinions. Your value rises and falls with the approval of others. And it's exhausting, because no matter how much you do, it's never enough. The applause fades, the compliments stop, the spotlight shifts. And you're left wondering, who am I without all of it? That's the trap. That's the cycle. Living for validation means your identity is outsourced. Your self-worth is fragile. Your peace is temporary. But when you move from alignment, everything changes. You no longer act for attention, you act from truth. You no longer seek to impress, you seek to express. You no longer beg to be seen, you walk like someone who knows they're already valuable. Alignment is a decision, a philosophy. It means choosing your path, not based on applause, but on purpose. It means saying no when it's unpopular, saying yes when it's scary. It means doing the right thing even when no one's watching, because you are. It's the quiet confidence of knowing that success will come not when the world finally sees you, but when you finally see yourself clearly. When you stop adjusting your worth to fit other people's preferences, when you stop chasing the moving target of popularity and start building the immovable foundation of identity, that's when you become magnetic. Not because you're trying, but because you're true. That's what people feel. That's what makes them curious. That's what makes them respect you. Not performance, but presence. Not perfection, but consistency. You're no longer reactive. You're intentional. You're no longer controlled by feedback. You're led by principle. And yes, it's harder. It takes longer. There's less noise, fewer claps, more silence. But in that silence, something powerful grows. Clarity, strength, depth. You start making moves not to be seen, but because they're aligned. You start building a life that fits your values, not someone else's expectations. And slowly, without fanfare, you rise, steady, focused, whole, because you've stopped playing a character and started becoming yourself. That's attraction, that's strategy. That's what makes success stick. Not hype, not hustle, but harmony between who you are and how you live. That's the philosophy. That's the standard. That's the life that doesn't need to prove anything, because it already is everything it was meant to be. You've been chasing for too long, running after goals, running after people, running after a version of yourself you thought would finally be enough. But the truth is, it was never about chasing. It was always about becoming. Becoming the one who no longer begs to be chosen, the one who no longer lowers their standards to fit a room they've outgrown, the one who no longer needs to be loud to be powerful. You've seen glimpses of that version before in the way you lead when you're aligned, in the way you speak when you stop trying to impress, in the way your presence shifts a room when you're not trying to perform. That version of you is not a dream, it's a decision, and now is the time to make it. Because the world doesn't need more noise. It doesn't need more people chasing status. It needs more people who move in silence, who live in truth, who radiate purpose without asking permission. That's the person success follows. That's the person people watch, not because they're the loudest, but because they're the most aligned. Be that person, the one who walks with clarity, who creates with intention, who leads without a spotlight. The one who doesn't chase but becomes the standard. Because when you become that version of you, the one you were always meant to be, everything changes. Your relationships evolve. Your energy deepens. Your influence expands. Not because you forced anything, but because you became undeniable. So choose now, in the quiet, before the world tries to distract you again. Choose to move differently. Speak differently. Think differently. Not tomorrow, now. Because success doesn't wait for you to catch up. It waits for you to align. And when you down, you become magnetic, composed, strategic, present everything that once felt out of reach will start reaching for you. If this message spoke to something deeper in you, stay with it. Revisit it. Let it anchor your next move. And if you want more depth, more clarity, more alignment, this is just the beginning. Join the journey. Follow the path, not because you need it, but because you've already decided you will be the one they watch